I wasn't supposed to be there that night. That's the funny thing. If I had left 5 minutes earlier, or if my phone battery hadn't died, or if the rain hadn't started falling out of nowhere, I would have walked straight past her and never known what I missed. It was a Thursday evening in late October, the kind of night that feels unfinished. Not cold enough for winter, not warm enough to feel alive. The city looked tired, streetlights buzzing, cars hissing over wet asphalt. People walking fast like they were late for lives they didn't really want. I ducked into a small coffee shop to wait out the rain. It wasn't the cool kind of place you post on Instagram. No exposed break, no ironic quotes on the walls. Just warm yellow lights, scratched wooden tables, and a tired barista who looked like had seen every version of heartbreak. That's when I saw her. She was sitting by the window, knees tucked under her, notebook open, pen frozen midair like she'd forgotten what she was about to write. Her hair was slightly messy, like she hadn't planned on being seen by anyone important. She wore an oversized sweater, sleeves covering half her hands. She wasn't trying to be beautiful, which somehow made it impossible not to look at her. I told myself not to stare. I ordered coffee I didn't really want and stood awkwardly, pretending to check my phone even though it was dead. When I turned around, she looked up. Our eyes met, and something happened. Not fireworks, not lightning. Something quieter, heavier. The kind of moment your body recognizes before your brain does. She smiled first, not a polite smile, a real one. The kind that feels like an invitation and a question at the same time. Long night? She asked, nodding at the rain. Yeah, I said, surprised my voice didn't crack. One of those nights that feels longer than it should. She closed her notebook. Those are usually the important ones. I laughed. You sound like you know that from experience. She tilted her head, studying me. Maybe I do. And just like that, the night changed direction. We talked like we'd already met somewhere else, not in real life, somewhere quieter. Her name rolled off her tongue like it had been waiting for me. When she said mine, she repeated it softly, testing the sound. At first we talked about nothing: coffee, music, mornings people pretend to love. Then it shifted. She told me she loved late-night drives with no destination. I said I sometimes take the long way home just to feel something unexpected might happen. You look like someone who thinks too much, she said. You look like someone who notices that, I replied. She laughed and the whole place felt warmer. The rain stopped outside. People came and went. The barista wiped the counter twice, looking at us like we were a movie he didn't want spoiled. Do you believe in timing? She asked. Like fate? Like things happening exactly when they're supposed to? I thought about all the ways I almost hadn't walked into that car. I didn't, I said. Until tonight. She held my gaze. Good answer. When we finally stood, it felt wrong, like closing a book before the best chapter. Outside, the street reflected the city lights like broken stars. Well, she said, hands in her pockets, this is usually where stories either end or begin. My heart was loud. I really hope it's the second one. She smiled. Me too? She gave me her number, scribbled on the edge of a receipt. As she walked away, she turned back once. Don't disappear. I won't, I said. And for the first time in a long while, I knew it was true. Falling doesn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels like waiting. Waiting for a text. Waiting for her name to light up your screen. Waiting while pretending you're not thinking about her every second. Our messages were effortless. Funny. Honest. Dangerous in the best way. She sent voice notes at midnight. I sent dumb memes at 2 a.m. We talked about childhood dreams, adult disappointments, fear, hope. She told me she was scared of loving the wrong person. I told her I was scared of never loving at all. When we met again, it felt familiar already, like the universe was catching up. We walked through the city, shoulders brushing. Every accidental touch felt intentional. At one point, she stopped walking. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Why does this feel different? I didn't answer right away, not wanting to ruin it with the wrong words. Because, I said slowly, I think we're both being real, and that's rare. She looked at me like she was deciding something. Then she took my hand, and that was it. The fall had begun. We started seeing each other more often. Coffee turned into dinners. Walks turned into hours of talking in parked cars because neither of us wanted to leave. She told me about her past, not everything, but enough. Old relationships that taught her what she wouldn't accept again. Moments she wished she'd been braver. I told her about mine. How I'd learned to keep parts of myself guarded. How solitude had become comfortable even when it hurt. You don't have to protect yourself with me, she said one night. I don't know how not to, I admitted. She reached out, resting her hand on my chest. Then well learned. That scared me not because I didn't want it but because I did. Somewhere between the rain, the silence, and the shared fears, she had become more than someone I loved spending time with. She had become someone I chose to show up for, even when my instincts told me to hide. Love doesn't stay easy. Anyone who tells you it does is lying. There were moments of silence, misunderstandings, old fears knocking on new doors. One night, we argued. Nothing dramatic, just enough to hurt. You don't let people in easily, she said. I'm trying, I replied. Trying isn't always enough. She walked away that night, and the city felt colder than it ever had. I didn't sleep. I thought about losing her before I ever fully had her. The next morning, I went to the cafe where we first met. Same table. Same light. I wrote her a message I was scared to send. I don't want to be perfect. I just want to choose you. Every day. She showed up an hour later, sat across from me, tears in her eyes. I was hoping you'd be here, she said. I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. That's when I knew. Love wasn't about never hurting. It was about never leaving. We didn't fix everything that day, but we promised to try, to show up even when it was hard. And that was enough to keep the spark alive. Weeks passed, not the dramatic kind real time. Grocery runs, late nights, quiet mornings. She became my favorite place. The person I wanted to tell everything to. The one I looked for in every room. One night, lying on the couch, she whispered, "Do you think we'll still choose each other when things get really hard?" I didn't hesitate. Yes. How do you know? Because even on the bad days, you're still my first thought. She smiled, rested her head on my chest, and in that moment, the world felt right. Time passed, not dramatically, just enough to notice the little things that made us us. We laughed more, shared secrets we hadn't told to anyone else, found joy in mundane moments, cooking dinner together, late-night drives with no destination, holding hands while walking through quiet streets. She became my safe place, my home in human form. One night, lying on the floor listening to music, she whispered, "Do you think people choose each other or just fall
not
and
dramatically
hope for the
just
best?"
enough
I
to
thought
notice
about
the
it.
little
Falling
things that
is
made
easy,
us us.
I said.
We
Choosing
laughed more,
is the hard part.
shared
She
secrets
rolled
we
onto
hadn't
her
told
side,
anyone
propping
else,
her head
found
on
joy
her
in
hand. "Are
mundane
you choosing
moments,
me?" I nodded.
cooking dinner
Yes.
together,
She smiled,
late-night
not
drives
wide,
with
not
no
playful, just
destination,
real. And when
holding
she leaned
hands
in and
while
kissed
walking
me for
through
the
quiet
first time in a
streets.
way that
She
felt
became
like
my
a
safe
promise,
place,
it wasn't
my
rushed
home
or
in human
uncertain.
form.
It felt like
One night,
confirmation, like the
lying on the
universe
floor
quietly
listening to
agreeing
music,
with our
she
hearts.
whispered,
We didn't need
"Do you
grand
think people
gestures to
choose
show
each other,
love. Small
or just
acts
fall
became
and hope for
sacred,
the best?"
making her tea the
I
way she
thought
liked
about
it,
it.
leaving
Falling
little
is
notes,
easy,
walking her
I
to the
said.
subway even
Choosing
when
is
tired.
the hard
Each act
part.
was a choice,
She
a quiet,
rolled onto her
constant
side,
decision to
propping
stay.
her head
She
on her
whispered
hand.
one night,
"Are
"I'm
you
afraid
choosing
loving
me?"
you is going
I
to change
nodded.
me too
Yes.
much." I kissed
She
her
smiled,
hair. Me too,
not
but I
wide,
won't let
not
it break
playful,
us.
just
Love
real.
had shifted.
And
It
when she
wasn't
leaned
about
in and kissed
intensity
me for the
anymore,
first
it was
time
about
in a way that
constancy,
felt like a promise,
trust, and
it
commitment.
wasn't rushed
Even fear
or
no longer
uncertain.
threatened to pull
It
us
felt
apart.
like confirmation,
Outside, the city
like the
hummed.
universe
Inside,
quietly
everything
agreeing
felt
with
steady.
our hearts.
Love wasn't a
We
question
didn't need
anymore.
grand
It was a
gestures
fact
to
we
show
lived
love.
every day, a
Small
story
acts
we were
became
writing together
sacred,
in small,
making her
perfect
tea the way
moments.
she liked it, leaving little notes, walking her to the subway even when tired. Each act was a choice, a quiet, constant decision to stay. She whispered one night, "I'm afraid loving you is going to change me too much." I kissed her hair. Me too. But I won't let it break us. Love had shifted. It wasn't about intensity anymore. It was about constancy, trust, and commitment. Even fear no longer threatened to pull us apart. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, everything felt steady. Love wasn't a question anymore. It was a fact we lived every day, a story we were writing together in small, perfect moments.
Time passed, not dramatically, just enough to notice the little things that made us us. We laughed more, shared secrets we hadn't told to anyone else, found joy in mundane moments, cooking dinner together, late-night drives with no destination, holding hands while walking through quiet streets. She became my safe place, my home in human form. One night, lying on the floor listening to music, she whispered, "Do you think people choose each other or just fall and hope for the best?" I thought about it. Falling is easy, I said. Choosing is the hard part. She rolled onto her side, propping her head on her hand. Are you choosing me? I nodded, yes. She smiled, not wide, not playful, just real. And when she leaned in and kissed me for the first time in a way that felt like a promise, it wasn't rushed or uncertain. It felt like confirmation, like the universe quietly agreeing with our hearts. We didn't need grand gestures to show love. Small acts became sacred, making her tea the way she liked it, leaving little notes, walking her to the subway even when tired. Each act was a choice, a quiet, constant decision to stay. She whispered one night, "I'm afraid loving you is going to change me too much." I kissed her hair. Me too, but I won't let it break us. Love had shifted. It wasn't about intensity anymore, it was about constancy, trust, and commitment. Even fear no longer threatened to pull us apart. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, everything felt steady. Love wasn't a question anymore. It was a fact we lived every day, a story we were writing together in small, perfect moments. Love always tests you, not with fire or storms, but with choices that seem small until you realize their weight. It came quietly for us, one ordinary Tuesday. She told me she had an opportunity, a big one. But it was in another city, far enough that weekends wouldn't fix the distance, far enough that everything we had would be tested. I nodded slowly, hiding my panic behind calm words. "Do you want it?" I asked. She hesitated. "I think I do, but I don't know how it will affect us." We spent the next days in quiet tension, not arguments, just awareness of the space between us. Every touch, every smile, every laugh carried the weight of the possible distance. One night, I asked, "What scares you more, leaving or staying and regretting it?" She looked at me, eyes glistening. I swallowed. I wanted to say, "Stay." But instead, I said, "Choose honestly," not out of fear, not out of obligation. The decision came during a rainstorm, of course. She stood by the window, suitcase half packed. "I don't want to lose myself," she whispered, "and I don't want to lose us." I stepped closer. "Then choose not alone." She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and looked at me with clarity. And not ready to build a life somewhere else, not without knowing what this could be. I held her tight. That night, there were no celebrations, just two people who had faced fear and chosen each other. Love had become brave. From then on, everything changed. We had been falling. We had been learning. But now, we were deciding to stay, to keep building, to trust in the story we were writing together. The choice was ours, and it cemented what had been quietly growing all along. Time slowed, not because the world stopped, but because we noticed the small things, the ordinary becoming extraordinary, simply because we shared it. Mornings became sacred. Coffee, quiet talks, fingers brushing over mugs, laughter over inside jokes. Nights felt like blankets, warm and safe. She left little notes around my apartment. "Don't forget to smile today. You make the world brighter." I started leaving coffee for her in the morning, perfectly warm, with little scribbles under the lid. These small gestures became our language. One evening, walking by the river, autumn leaves swirling, she held my hand tighter than usual. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" she asked. "All the wrong turns, all the almost misses," I said. "Let us hear." She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. "It's scary how real it feels." "Scary good," I corrected. Arguments still happened, but now we had tools. Honesty, patience, laughter, listening. We learned that love wasn't the absence of fear, but showing up in spite of it. One Friday, sitting in the park, she traced patterns in the dirt, and I traced them with her. "Do you think people really choose each other?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "because even when you see everything, the flaws, the fears, you still want to stay." She looked at me. "That's us, isn't it?" "That's us." Later, lying in the dark, she whispered, "I used to be afraid love would hurt me too much, but with you I finally believe in it." I kissed her hair, and I promised to keep earning that belief every day. Outside, the city hummed, but inside, everything felt steady. Love had stopped being a question, it had become a fact, a home we built together. The first time I realized she was more than a chapter in my life, I was standing on the balcony. City lights blurred beneath the night sky. She leaned against me, arms around my waist, head on my shoulder. The world felt immense, yet smaller because we were in it together. "Do you ever think about how everything led us here?" she asked softly. "All the wrong turns, all the little accidents, they weren't accidents at all," I said. She laughed quietly. "You make it sound like fate." "Maybe it was," I said, "or maybe we just kept showing up for each other." We had built routines, quiet rituals that felt sacred. Grocery shopping became fun. Cooking together became messy laughter. Late-night drives became adventures with no end. One night, lying on the couch, she whispered, "Do you think we'll still choose each other when it gets hard?" I didn't hesitate. Yes. She smiled, eyes glimmering, and leaned into me. That's when I understood. Love isn't fireworks or obsession, it's patience, trust, courage, and the quiet certainty of showing up. Later, as she fell asleep in my arms, I stared at the ceiling and felt it in my chest. The thrilling knowledge that life would continue to surprise us, that we would face challenges, joys, and ordinary days together, that we would keep choosing each other again and again. And somewhere in the silence, I smiled, not at fate, not at luck, but at us, because we had found what most people spend a lifetime searching for. Not perfection, not fireworks, not fleeting passion. Something deeper, something enduring, something real, love, home, and the story we'd keep writing forever. Weeks turned into months, and months into a rhythm we could call our own. Life still demanded attention, work, family, errands, but everything else had shifted. Our world had its own heartbeat. A quiet certainty that carried us through ordinary mornings and sleepless nights alike. She left her sweater at my place. I left my notebook at hers. We laughed at the absurdity, then realized it didn't matter. These small exchanges were evidence of a life intertwined. Proof that love wasn't only about passion, but about sharing space, time, and trust. One rainy evening, we walked the streets we had first met on, holding hands, umbrellas forgotten. The city glowed under the wet asphalt. "Do you remember that night?" she asked. I nodded. I didn't know then that a single glance could change everything. She smiled. I did. Somehow, I knew you'd matter. I stopped, turning her gently to face me. "We're still choosing every day," I said, "and we will." She rested her forehead against mine. Forever sounds possible. We never said it out loud as a vow. Number rang, no dramatic speech, but love had become language enough. Our hands intertwined, fingers fitting perfectly like puzzles finally solved. Our stories, once separate, had merged, forming a narrative stronger than either of us alone. And though the city carried on around us, indifferent and relentless, inside us existed a space untouched by time, a sanctuary we had built. A home where love wasn't questioned, only lived. Later that night, as she fell asleep beside me, I realized life wouldn't always be easy. Challenges would come. Fears would resurface. But we had learned to stay, and that, I knew, was more than enough, because in choosing each other over and over, we had discovered something rare. A love steady enough to endure, brave enough to grow, and patient enough to become forever. And in that quiet truth, the story didn't end. It simply began anew every day with the same heartbeat, the same promise, and the same love we had always fought to find.